There's no countdown anymore.
Nope.
Didn't there used to be a countdown?
Yeah.
That's so misleading. Okay. Hurrah! And we are talking about A Clockwork Orange.
Yours is way more
And
interesting than mine. Mine's a library copy.
did they take the cover off of it?
No, it's just a different.
No.
Boring.
Did yours have all the chapters?
It does not have the. It's the American version, so it doesn't have the last chapter.
Interesting. See, they reprinted. I was reading the introduction because I believe mine is American as well. Yeah. They reprinted it in 1986, and it had the last chapter in it.
Okay, mine is from 1962.
That explains it.
Yeah, but I did read about the last chapter. That was not in the book.
Or in the Kubrick film.
Yeah.
Have you seen the movie?
No, I don't do violence or anything very well. So I think I would imagine that the movie is very good, and my husband likes it a lot. But I would never actually be able to watch it, I don't think.
I watched it in college. I think it was my junior year of college. And there's the scene in the beginning where Alex and his droogs break into that guy's house and with the typewriter.
Yeah.
And so in that scene, the music they use is Singing in the Rain. And a bunch of people in my rank in marching band came over to my dorm room and we were watching it on TV. And so Singing in the Rain comes on and we're like, oh, hey, this is kind of cool. And because the show that we did had Singing in the Rain in, and after that, because of the violence that happened, I can't hear that song the same.
Yeah, which is kind of the whole, like, that's the whole idea of how that's ruined for him as well. So that's really cool that they, like, brought the same idea into the movie.
Yeah, yeah. I think they did it with the classical music as well.
Mm-hmm.
Where, part one, the classical music is he's like, yo, I'm going to be violent, and it makes me have all these beautiful pictures of violence, ultra violence, and then he's conditioned out of it. Behaviorism. Oh, I love behaviorism. And the professor says the behaviorism is bullshit.
But it's not. It doesn't explain everything.
Okay, so she amended her statement and said it's not complete bullshit, but it doesn't explain everything.
Yes, that is. Do you watch Crash Course at all? Because Crash Course Psychology just
it's been a while.
Yeah, they just cover behaviorism and then like here's all the things that behaviorism didn't explain and how it progressed, and so.
Should go back and watch that. Hey, you gotta check out Crash Course Psychology, right?
Yeah.
Crash Course Psychology. We should watch it. It's on YouTube.
Okay.
Oh, she's a psychologist. Yeah. So, ye who does not like violence, what do you think?
Well, I don't like violence. Like, I can't watch violence. So I wouldn't be able to watch the movie. I liked the story a lot. Like, I liked the plot, and I can, like, see how it would be a really good, powerful movie. I did not enjoy the writing. I thought that the slang didn't really contribute enough to the book to make it worth it. It made it really hard to read. And when I was kind of like mentally substituting the words before I kind of got into the rhythm of it, I was like, the writing is not actually that good. Like, I feel like the slang kind of covers up the fact that the writing is actually really like awkward and stilted.
Yeah.
So,
and like tense problems all over the place.
Yeah, just like the ideas are really good and the story is really good, but the writing I did not enjoy.
Does your edition have the glossary in it?
Yes.
So that's helpful.
Yeah.
I had to go look up some of them because mine does not have a glossary in it.
Oh, okay.
Um, and I think that makes it even harder
Yeah.
to kind of slog through than at least having be able to flip to the end.
Right.
No, I can't take this anywhere and read it because I don't know what any of the words mean.
Yeah, exactly.
And
It is interesting because as I got further into it, and I don't know if it's because the words became familiar to me, but some of them, I would look them up and then I would be like, yeah, that's basically what I figured it meant based on the context. And I was like, I wonder if I'm using the glossary almost too much as a crutch because you can't actually figure out what the words mean from context a lot of the time.
if they come up enough, there are some of them, and I can't remember which off the top of my head that I struggled with the context,
Yeah.
with just the context. Um, but like Droogs, I've seen everywhere. That one was easy. Apparently, it's Russian-esque,
Yeah.
um, which is interesting. But I don't know anything about Russian, so I couldn't use that as a
Yeah,
help.
I mean either. So you said you had seen the movie previously. Had you read the book before you saw the movie, or?
I don't think I read the book until after I saw the movie.
Okay.
So that was also one of those helpful things that I had that visual, and
Right.
that's backwards for me. Um, but having the visual before I read it the first time definitely helped.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I find the whole idea of the last chapter not being in the American version and how that changes the story really fascinating.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. Lists, I imagine. Um, because it changes the message of the story, not having that last chapter. Because the last chapter is like, oh yeah, people can change, and this idea of will grow out of some of the things that youth do, and that's why there are 21 chapters
Hmm.
to begin with. Did you hear about that?
No.
It's separated into three parts of 21 chapters each, or three parts of 7 chapters, and um, Burgess had 21 chapters on purpose because that was like the legal age of you're an adult now.
Hmm.
So the number of chapters was symbolic,
Okay.
is he grows up and feels like the violence is basically not as important as it was before. So, he gets out of the hospital and he's got new droogs, and but he spends more time just giving them orders and then watching than actually engaging in the violence himself. And he sees um, Pete, I think, with his wife and kid, and realizes that this is actually what he wants, as opposed to going around and destroying things all the time.
Yeah.
So it's that air of hopefulness as opposed to the stark people can't change. They're all going to.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that last chapter provides a contrast then between change that is forced upon a person versus change that comes about naturally. Whereas without the chapter, you just get, if you don't force change on someone, like there's no good answer there. Either they're evil or you take away their free will. Like,
Yeah, yeah, and that's interesting. I had to look up what a Clockwork Orange meant Um, well, I looked it up before I started reading,
Hmm.
and apparently it has to do with like so you have this thing that is juicy and vibrant and whatever,
Right.
and if it's clockwork, then it's just slave to like the machine
Yeah.
and loses all of its uniqueness and that I think is interesting because that's basically what they do to him.
Right.
Is turning him into this guy who gets Spike-like. Did you watch Buffy?
Nope.
No. Okay. I was reading part two and thinking this is what they did to Spike when they put the thing in his brain and he couldn't bite people. It made him sick to bite people.
Yep.
Nah, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Yeah.
Nope, never saw it.
Ah, great show. Anyway, so is there anything in particular besides bad writing and the 21st chapter missing from the American version you want to talk about?
um, Not particularly. I think, huh. I read it a few weeks ago, so I'm trying to remember. I mean, what were your thoughts on the use of slang? Like, whether that contributed anything to the book?
I thought it was interesting. I don't really feel like it was necessary, but I don't think that it would. I don't think the text would be as like this is Anthony Burgess's text if it weren't for the slang.
Yeah.
Um, he says in the introduction that it's not his favorite piece.
Right.
It's like it's not it's not the one that he's most proud of, and yet it's the one that everybody knows because it is so starkly different. Plus the Stanley Kubrick film.
Right. Yeah.
So, are you out? Okay. Yeah, it got in the way for me
Yeah.
for the
It
most
did
part. If
for
I
me
didn't know
too.
it already.
What's that?
Particularly the ones that I didn't know already. Like I knew Droogs, because I remember that one from when I saw the film, and there was a YA piece that I read a couple of years ago where the main character calls his little lackeys Droogs, and it's like, oh hey, look, Clockwork Orange, this kid is intelligent. Um,
Yeah.
but other than that, I I think the message would have come across just fine without it. But I think the idea was that it set the characters apart a bit from mainstream society, that they used this particular type of language with each other and not as much with like authority.
Yeah. What was confusing to me at first was that I didn't realize that this slang was only used for like his generation or his group of friends. Um, I thought it was just like the futuristic language of the society in which the book was set. So it wasn't until I realized that you know the meaning of the slang and the purpose of it really I didn't really understand that at all. I still don't think it was necessary or helpful necessarily, but
Yeah.
but I just thought, like, why did he just invent this like new language for our future society? But when I realized it was like a language that they had invented for their own generation, then it made a little more sense.
Yeah, I think in addition to setting themselves apart, it's like saying we are not mainstream. We are railing against the the oppression that we're feeling by the state, by the machine.
Yeah.
And who was the character that I thought was there was it wasn't Pete. I think it was Dim, and I don't know if it was another guy, but I think it might have been another guy from school. So there's this whole idea that they're trying to keep things in order, and it's like with the police and everything, and violence isn't tolerated. And then at the end, we find out Dim is a policeman, and so they've taken basically what the state does is they appropriate this violence to the state to keep kids' violence in check.
Right.
And it seems hypocritical to me.
Yeah, and I think that the book makes some interesting points about how violence, like not necessarily violence, but just like physical force, like he's not even able to use that in self-defense after he's conditioned, and it almost makes the point that like the ability to use physical force is a tool that can be used for good or for bad, and that in certain circumstances, like you need the ability to physically defend yourself.
Yeah. I did like, okay, so parts 1 and 3 are kind of parallel, but I felt it was a little contrived.
Yeah, very much so.
Okay, so yeah, not a little contrived, a lot contrived. Like, okay, yeah, at the beginning of the book, we beat up this dude who came out of the library, do it on our turf, and we like stomp his teeth. And then part 3, dude goes into the library and then gets wailed on, like in the other guy's in the other guy's stomping grounds. And the same thing with the guy whose wife was raped and then she died. Ends up in their cottage, and he uses them to try. The gentleman whose name is Alexander, interestingly, which is probably also contrived.
Yeah.
Uses, like, he's pissed about the conditioning, but at the same time he's also got all this rage toward the boys who essentially killed his wife. Right. So he uses them to try to get back at the state, basically turning him into a martyr for his own revenge purposes.
Yeah, he uses Alex, is that the main character? Narrator, as much as a tool as the government or the hospital tries to do, for their own purposes, to show this is what we can do with our conditioning. And then he's just a pawn in this other group's plan to get back at the government. And it's like, regardless of whether you're part of the government or you're against the government, like, you shouldn't be using other human beings as tools and pawns in your proving your point.
Yep. I agree totally.
Yeah.
Craziness. I kind of want to read some of his other work just to see if the writing is any better.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay, so why is this his seminal work? Why did everything else get overshadowed by this work? Was it just Stanley Kubrick because Kubrick took the book and made it into a film, or?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I think that's happened with other people as well. I think it's always a shame to me when an author like clearly has a really good idea, a really good message, but just like the writing is not there, and you're like, oh, like, I love what you're trying to say here, but this is not enjoyable to read.
Like Blackout?
Yeah.
Have we picked one that like most people have liked yet?
I think most people liked The Language of Flowers.
Oh yes, I love that one.
Which was my suggestion, so
yes,
that was good.
That was fantastic. I've heard really good things about A Tree Grows in Brooklyn.
Yeah, that is on
Uh,
my to-read list.
it's on mine now too. So
Yeah.
hopefully that one will come up. I won't cheat, but I will vote for that one next time.
Yeah. Have you started on This Star Won't Go Out?
I read it in February.
Okay.
It was an impulse purchase when I was at Target, and yeah, I read it in February because the professor was reading The Fault in Our Stars at that point.
Okay.
Have you?
I'm about halfway through, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish it.
I don't. I was thinking, it's like, how do you talk about something like that? You know,
Yeah.
it's like you can't critique a kid's journal.
Right.
Like we're sitting here talking about Burgess's writing, and he's a professional writer, and
Yeah.
but you can't really critique a kid's writing, but not their journal,
Right.
because the whole purpose was not for it to be read. It was,
Yeah.
getting the
I think
ideas out.
I think you can critique the fact that somebody decided that they needed to publish the entirety of her journal.
I
Anyway,
think that's one
we
of.
can discuss that next month.
That's true. That's true. Um, I don't got much.
Yeah, I don't have much else to say about this one.
We can cut it short.
Yeah.
All right. And hopefully next month we'll have more people.
Yeah.
Be like, guys, come out of the woodwork.
You know.
I don't think my copy is here. So next month, or I guess this month, technically May, is This Star Won't Go Out. I'll post the poll for June and July here soon.
Awesome.
Maybe I'll just do that now because the professor left, and
Okay.
I'm gonna end the broadcast. Yay!
All right.